Welcome back to another episode of The Real Deal with Evan Neal. I am Evan Neal, and let's talk about scary movies. Because there's nothing I like better on a Friday night or a Saturday night, or honestly just about any night, than a really good scary movie. And this was something that happened to me when I was a little kid. I really was excited about scary movies. There was something about occult, the things that we're not supposed to know about, that really caught my interest. And I've never lost it. It's something that I've always enjoyed. So I was thinking about it today. I have two kids. One is 7 and one is 8. And they're not quite the age where I want to introduce them to a lot of horror yet. But when the day comes, I want to introduce them to these 3 movies. So these are 3 movies that I would recommend to anyone who's wanting to get into modern horror. These aren't classics. Some might call them classics. But when I think of classics of horror, I think back into the 60s and the 70s and even some in the 80s. But these are movies that are at least from the year 2000 to the present. And the first movie I'm going to start with is in 2002, and that's Gore Verbinski's reimagining of The Ring. If you have not seen The Ring, you are missing out. This is a movie that plays on your sense of dread. And it's a movie that exposes you to things that should have a negative effect on you. By the end of the movie, I was left riveted. I remember seeing this one in the movie theater and thinking that we had the cop-out Hollywood ending and everything was nice and beautiful. And then the real ending hit. And man, did it ever hit. This is a great movie to introduce somebody to the idea of jump scares done well. They're not just done to scare the member or the character in the movie. They're done to scare you as an audience member. It's almost as if you're being allowed to see this private world at times that you shouldn't be able to see. And there's some images that from this movie that I can't shake. To this day, still, if I'm up in the middle of the night, I do not want to start thinking about The Ring. So that's my first recommendation for modern horror. My second recommendation is The Descent. The Descent is one of these movies that is scary before even any element of horror hits the movie. It's about a group of women that go spelunking, and as they're exploring these caves, we get a whole sense of being lost. We get the sense of claustrophobia. We get the sense that at any turn they could lose their lives. And it's only when that tension is ratcheted up to about 10 that we get the true elements of horror. And when those things hit, man, do they hit. And it is done in such a realistic way that your suspension of disbelief is there. You really believe the things that you are seeing. So The Descent is one of those movies about, not just about dread, but this is about setting. If you want to show a movie to somebody and really explain to them how setting can really influence a horror film, there you go. Instead of it being a haunted house in this case, we have the caves and the entire network of caves that we don't know about. There's unknown corners. There's unknown canals. There's unknown places. So the entire sense of being lost is there for you. So The Descent is another one really good on the horror level, and it makes you feel every impact of that movie. I don't want to give anything away, but every swing of a hammer, you feel it. By the end of the movie, you're exhausted. So that's my second recommendation. My third recommendation, Stephen King is going to be here on this list. You knew it had to be. But it's Frank Darabont's The Mist. The Mist is one of these movies I include for 2 reasons. The first reason is the way that the movie is shot. It wasn't set up to be a pretty movie, if that makes sense. it wasn't set up for the best or the most beautiful shots. Actually, the people the cinematographers for The Mist, were the same people who were working on a TV show at the time called The Shield, and this was a police drama. And for them to come over and do a horror film was kind of unique because they were used to handheld cameras. They were used to getting very close. They were used to filming in a way that put you in the action. So it does at times get a little shaky camera for you. There are senses that you feel like you're there stuck with these survivors in the story. And for anyone who doesn't know the basic story of The Mist, it is about just that. A huge mist comes and blankets this town, and all of the survivors kind of take shelter in a grocery store, and they don't know what's out there in the mist. They don't know if there's monsters. They don't know if there's psychotic people. They don't know what is out there in the mist. The true horror necessarily isn't out there, but what happens with the people stuck inside. What the decisions they make are horrific, and the overall sensation of that movie is one of true escapism. If you want to feel like you've been in another world for a couple of hours, The Mist is a great suggestion. If you pick up The Mist on Blu-ray, there is an option to watch the movie in black and white. Now, that's not something that I necessarily always recommend, but for this movie, for some reason, it works really well. It just gives it that kind of feeling of an extended Twilight Zone episode. So if you ever want to have an experience when it comes to a scary movie, The Mist is my choice for you. I told you there was 2 reasons why I recommend that movie. I gave you the first reason, long rambling way. The second reason is the end. The end of that movie is a gut punch of an ending. It is an ending that will leave you sprawled. Now that I've said that, you might think, oh no, he's built it up. It's going to be too much. If you've never seen The Mist, sit down and watch it, and then comment below and let me know what you think of that ending. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people really dislike it. And here's a fun little tidbit. That ending was created by the director Frank Darabont. It was not the ending that Stephen King created. As a matter of fact, when The Mist was created, he had no real ending. It just kind of stopped, and you never knew what happened to the survivors. But Frank Darabont decided that he wanted us to know what happened to these survivors, so he wrote an ending. And man, is it ever bleak. Let me tell you, it's one of those things that everything about that ending works. The cinematography is fantastic. The acting is above bar. The music choices at that moment are phenomenal. So do yourselves a favor. Watch those 3 movies. You have The Ring, you have The Descent, and you have The Mist. Those are 3 modern horror classics. I guess I'll call them classics as well. And if you survive the night, let me know, and I can give you even more horror recommendations. So once again, please keep yourself safe. I've been Evan Neal, and this is The Real Deal. Thanks.